Hi, welcome to my kitchen. My name's Rose, and today we're going to be talking about chocolate chip cookies. Now, I know that there are probably hundreds of recipes out there for chocolate chip cookies. I've been making chocolate chip cookies for 40 years, but I have a little twist on my chocolate chip cookies and a few tips when you're baking that I think will be helpful. When I'm doing chocolate chip cookies or any kind of cookies that require eggs or butter, I put them out on the counter to soften. And people say, is that really necessary? Can't you just melt the butter? No, you can't just melt the butter. It changes how it'll affect the dough. So you soften the butter so that it will blend really well with your sugar. Now, people don't realize that you should put your eggs out on the counter as well. And there's a couple of reasons why. It'll blend better as well, but eggs have a leavening effect in your recipe. And so if they're cold, they will affect that, and it will affect the baking time of your cookies because the eggs are cold. So I think overall, it's just better to have everything at room temperature. So a little difference in my recipe is I take a half a cup of butter, just one stick of butter, which is 8 tablespoons. And I use a half a cup of butter flavored Crisco. And I think it makes for a fluffier cookie. And so that's one little change from the traditional recipe. I go ahead and add 3/4 of a cup of white sugar and 3/4 of a cup of firmly packed brown sugar. Again, you always want to pack your brown sugar because it's really moist from the molasses that's in your brown sugar. You can use light or dark. And then I just go ahead and get it mixing. And you'll want to really mix this. When you're doing your creaming part of a recipe, you want this to get really light and fluffy. And you can beat and beat and beat, and it's not going to hurt anything. There are certain points when you're making cookies or baking at any kind of recipe that you have to be careful how much you beat it. But this, I'm just going to go ahead and cream it really well and make sure it's really well blended, which it is. And then I just go ahead and scrape down the bowl. Another thing with KitchenAid appliances or any on-the-counter appliance, you definitely have to scoop on the bottom of the bowl because it doesn't mix totally. So go ahead and do that. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some more wet ingredients. This is a teaspoon of pure vanilla. Always use real vanilla, don't use the imitation. And 2 room temperature eggs, and I prefer jumbo eggs. That's just my preference, or you can use extra large eggs. But in my recipe, it'll be either an extra large egg or it will be a jumbo egg. Now again, I'm going to really beat this so that it's light and fluffy. Because once I do the dry ingredients, that's when I have to be super careful how long I beat the dough. Because you're developing the gluten in the flour and it will make for a tougher cookie if you keep beating it. So this is getting really nice and fluffy. I like my eggs to be really fluffy. So I stop it again. And I'm going to go ahead and just scrape the paddle as well, because you want everything really well mixed. In the past, I've made cookies, and then there's this like little brown spot that's really flat in the cookie, and I used to wonder, what is wrong with my cookies? Well, it was just because something was not mixed well, or there was a chunk of brown sugar that just kind of exploded in there because it didn't dissolve into the batter. So check for those things. So I am going to go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. And I'm just going to go ahead and mix that in my flour. Now, a lot of recipes will call you to sift your flour, and you can do that. That helps mix it and put some air in your flour. When you're measuring your flour, you don't want to pack it down. You want to like fluff up your flour, get it in the cup, and then just use either your hand or a knife and just even it out at the top. Okay, and then I just slowly add, actually, to be honest with you, I don't slowly add it. I just dump it all in. The recipe calls for you to slowly add it, but I'm going to be honest, I just put it on a low speed and I just blend it until everything is mixed together. I know that I've given this recipe out quite a few times, and I have been accused of giving the wrong recipe because they say they don't come out like yours. But when you're measuring flour, sometimes you can make it a little bit of a mistake. So one of my things I like to do is there we go. So that's pretty well blended, and I'm going to finish. I like to kind of touch the dough If it comes back on my finger, it's too wet. Then I just add another tablespoon of flour. But I like it to be a fluffier cookie. So go ahead and scrape this off. You can add your chocolate chips to the batter with your paddle, but I'm just going to hand mix it in. It keeps them from breaking apart, but you can go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to show you how I do it. There you go. This is a 12-ounce pack of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Just dump that in. You're going to want to make sure to really stir the bottom of your bowl. And I can tell that this dough is all right because it's nice and stiff. And you don't want it hard, but you do want it stiff if you want a big fluffy cookie. And we like big fluffy cookies at my house. And this recipe is so easy. There you go. Let's scrape the sides once. There we go. So I'll just make sure that's very well mixed. The sides are scraped, the bottom's been scraped. And then I go ahead, move some of these things out of the way. I go ahead and use a parchment lined sheet. Now something else that I like these air bake sheets because I think that they brown more evenly versus just a cookie sheet that has a 1-inch side. And because I'm going to be using the convection cycle on my oven, this way it just blows all the way through. There's no boundaries on the side. So I use an ice cream scoop. We like big cookies at our house too. So I go ahead and just get an even scoop, put it on here. And because these are big cookies, I only tend to put 5, maybe 6 cookies on a sheet. That's why I need 3 cookie sheets. Now, if you want more cookies, just go ahead and use a smaller scoop. There are multiple sizes of scoops out there. You can get a scoop that is specifically for cookies. This is an ice cream scoop, and we just, like I said, we like a bigger cookie. So I go ahead and do this on all 3. And let me share with you the difference between regular bake and convection bake. Now, some ovens have a convection cycle that you can do on your oven. And what that does is it moves the air so that you can use multiple racks in your oven. If not, what you should do is only use 2 racks in your oven for cookies and halfway through move them. Switch places because they just don't cook evenly if you have a lot of sheets of cookies in the oven at the same time. But with convection, I can go ahead and do all 3. And they'll go the full time together. And then maybe the middle one I'll have to just leave in a little bit longer. One of the nice things about cookies is if you can make a batch of cookies here and there and just put them in your freezer, then you always have them in case you have guests, or if you're going to go to somebody's house, you can make a nice package of cookies for them. I think it's really nice to surprise people with things. I just think a package of cookies is nice for anyone, whether it be the people that pick up your trash or the people at the dry cleaner. Sometimes we have a tailor here in town that helps me out. Sometimes hemming a pair of pants, I'll bring her some cookies. I think a small gift always brightens somebody's day. Okay, these are all ready to get in the oven. Like I said, 375. If you're using convection, your oven will automatically convert it to 350. But if you're using a regular oven, 375. And I would check them at about 11 minutes. They usually go 11 to 13 minutes or so, but check the doneness, see how you like them. I like them browner. My kids like them a little raw in the middle. So however you like your cookies. Let's go ahead and get these in. And I'm placing them on 3 racks. Convection's not even on. There we go. And I'll set my timer for 11 minutes so that I can give those a check. So as I stated before, I like to pack up my cookies and put them in the freezer. I like to have some in the freezer all the time in case I need them. Who wouldn't want a stack of cookies on a hard day? And so take an opportunity every day to just do something kind for someone, whether it's cookies or a smile, something to encourage them, ask them how their day is. And I think that that's a great way to use your baked goods. Thanks for coming to my kitchen.